Can you only imagine what it was like raising a child like me? My sister plays beautiful piano. She took 8 years of classical piano. My mom plays piano. My dad played trombones, had a dance band we'll get to in just a moment. And I was just watching. But every morning, Dad would wake us up to different music, like Beatles for me one day, Peter, Paul, and Mary the next for my sister, Tommy Dorsey for he and Mom. My dad was always doing the most incredible things. Like one Saturday morning, he wakes me up and he says, we've got something to do. So we go to Sears and we buy a basketball goal and a backboard. And I thought, well, you know, I've already got a basketball goal and a backboard. Maybe Dad thinks something new will help me. Dad found out there was this kid in the neighborhood who was pretty good at basketball but didn't have a goal and a backboard. So on that Saturday, we went over there and we put up a goal and a backboard and we played basketball. You don't forget things like that when your parents show you by example. He never said a word. He never said anything except, we have something to do this morning. Although it involves a radio story, it really is about parents. When I worked at WNEX, it really wasn't in the best of neighborhoods. As a matter of fact, one morning when I went to sign on the station, there was a big footprint in the door. The door fell. Out of all the records that were in the Big X, the things that they could have taken, they took one black and white television set. My dad's been deceased for 24 years, but this story is now just coming out about he and his band. My dad is from North Carolina and he went to Duke University. Before he was drafted his sophomore year to fly in World War II, he had a band. My uncle tells us a story about this band. Now, Dad had it, he goes away, and an underclassman takes over the band. The man's name was Les Brown. And that band became Les Brown and the Band of Renown. What I didn't know is that at home my dad had a radio and he'd be listening to be sure that everything was okay and that I signed on. They were a little concerned about my safety. The studio was here, there was a lake, cesspool, and then the transmitter was over here, and you had to drive from the studio to get over the transmitter. The transmitter's on, I start to sign the radio station on, but I don't hear any audio. So I get in the car and I drive over to the transmitter. There was a rack of audio processing equipment and the fuse had blown. Luckily enough, there was another fuse on top of it. I replaced it. Voila! Feeling pretty good about myself, I drive back over to the radio station. And there's my mom and dad. When I did my radio show from Disney World on its 15th anniversary, I took Dad as my guest down there. And one of the things that I remember the most is because of his dance band. Buddy Rich, an incredible drummer, was playing. It was like a press weekend. There were 400 radio shows coming out of that place in one time. And the expression on his face. We sat maybe 10 feet away. We were sitting there chomping down on free food and there's Buddy Rich. Disney did a special electric light parade for all of us and we each got one of these hats. So the parade is coming by and Dad and I are sitting on the sidewalk. We have our legs crossed and I look over at him and he has his hat on like this. Dad is blessing the floats as they go by and I look at him and I said, "You look like the Pope." Our liaison was Ed French. I got one of these I'm an honorary citizen guy with my name on it. I'll have to ask Dewey Chafee what that really means. I know how the conversation went at the house. My mom would say, "What do you think's happened?" I don't know, but I'm going down there. Not without me, you're not. So when I get back over to the radio station, their car is outside, and there is my dad with a gun and my mom with a banana. I said, "Dad, what are you doing with a gun?" He said, "Well, I heard the transmitter come on, and I didn't hear you, and I thought maybe something had happened. I wanted to be sure you were okay." "Mom, what are you doing with a banana?" "Well, I figured if you were all right that you might be hungry." I love my parents.